What if the world's most trusted vault is no longer trusted? Germany and Italy, America's key allies, are preparing to pull over $209 billion worth of gold out of the New York Federal Reserve. Not in years, in weeks, using military cargo planes. Behind closed doors, this operation could signal a fracture in the post-war global order. For nearly 80 years, the U.S. vaults were considered untouchable, secure, reliable, sacred. So why are nations suddenly rushing to take their gold home? Is this about sovereignty, leverage, or a quiet rebellion against the dollar's dominance? And here's the real question. If even close allies are moving their gold out of America, what comes next for global finance? Let's go inside and break down the latest developments happening across the world right now. In an era where geopolitics increasingly shape economics, a monumental shift is quietly unfolding. Germany and Italy, two of the Eurozone's actors, are in active talks to repatriate 1,730 tons of gold from the vaults of the New York Federal Reserve. The total value? A staggering $209 billion. But this isn't simply about moving shiny metal bars across the Atlantic. This is about trust, specifically, a crack in the trust that has underpinned the US-led financial order since the end of World War II. Stored in Manhattan's ultra-secure vaults some 24 meters underground, much of this gold has sat untouched for decades. The rationale? Security, stability, tradition. But as 2025 unfolds, those assumptions are being re-examined, and in doing so, Germany and Italy may be initiating one of the most significant challenges to US financial dominance in recent history. Gold is strategy, not symbol. Let's make one thing clear. This is not merely a symbolic act, it's strategic. Germany's opposition party, AfD, has long called for the repatriation of the nation's gold, framing it as a matter of sovereignty and self-determination. Their rhetoric is gaining traction as Chancellor Friedrich Merz tries to walk a political tightrope between transatlantic cooperation and growing domestic pressure. Meanwhile, in Rome, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni finds herself squeezed between her nationalist voter base and her need to negotiate favorably with the US over trade tariffs. For her, the gold serves dual purposes, a political promise and a potent negotiation chip. How much gold are we talking about? Germany currently owns 3,352 tons of gold, more than any other country in Europe and second only to the US globally. About 1,236 tons, or roughly a third, is still stored in the US. Italy's gold reserves amount to 2,451 tons, of which 700 tons remain overseas. Combined, these holdings in the New York Fed total approximately 1,330 tons. Using today's spot prices, that's over $209 billion sitting in American vaults, a sum that could become a powerful political lever or a source of diplomatic tension. Why now? Timing is everything. The motivation behind this move isn't solely nationalist fervor. There's a broader unease at play. Since the start of the decade, the US has wielded its financial system as a tool of geopolitical enforcement, cutting access to SWIFT, freezing foreign assets, and leveraging the dollar's reserve status in economic sanctions. For European powers, that's a reminder that control over your own reserves matters more than ever. It's not paranoia, it's prudent risk management. And with public opinion shifting in both Germany and Italy, leaders are responding. A recent poll in Germany revealed that more than half of the population supports bringing the gold home. This isn't fringe sentiment, it's mainstream, and it's gaining momentum. Logistics. Lessons from the past. Between 2013 and 2017, Germany carried out a smaller repatriation operation, moving 674 tons from Paris and New York to Frankfurt. The process was conducted with military precision, NATO cargo planes, night shipments, high-security protocols. It proved that such operations are feasible, though not without cost or complexity. If a similar plan is executed again, weekly shipments of 50 to 60 tons could see all 1,030 tons moved within 8-10 weeks. The operation would reduce the Fed's balance sheet by around $29 billion and could signal a seismic shift in international reserve behavior. The Fed's dilemma, reputation, and liquidity. What would happen if the Fed lost nearly 2,000 tons of foreign-held gold in a matter of weeks? On paper, it's a neutral balance sheet adjustment. But in reality, the market response could be anything but. Treasury yields could rise sharply. Market participants may interpret this move as of no confidence in the dollar's global reserve role. A 10 basis point spike in yields might not sound catastrophic, but when applied to the $35 trillion US national debt, the cost implications become significant. More worryingly, rising yields could cascade into higher mortgage rates, elevated corporate borrowing costs, and tightened municipal budgets. Gold versus dollar? A new era in reserve strategy? Historically, central banks kept a modest share of their reserves in gold, often under 10%. But that's been shifting. In 2000, gold's share in global reserves stood at 11%. By the end of 2024, it had climbed past 20%. If Germany and Italy proceed with their repatriation plans and inspire others to follow, we could see gold's share hit 25% or more by 2028. That shift wouldn't just be psychological, it would be structural. A drop in demand for U.S. Treasury securities of $800 billion is plausible, and that would mean sustained upward pressure on U.S. interest rates. Collateral damage, housing, autos, and infrastructure. Let's break that down into real-world impact. In the housing market, where 30-year fixed mortgage rates are already hovering around 6.6%, even a 15 basis point rise could raise the cost of a $350,000 mortgage by $380 annually. That might not break the bank for every household, but across millions of loans, it adds up. In the auto sector, where loans are now approaching 85% of total vehicle purchases, higher interest rates could lead to 500,000 fewer vehicle sales per year. For American manufacturing, that's not just lost revenue, it's lost jobs. Then there's infrastructure. Municipal bond yields often move in sync with treasuries. A 30 basis point rise could force cities to delay or cancel public works projects, worsening stagnation in local economies. Could this spark a new kind of arms race? As Germany and Italy take control of their physical gold, other countries may follow. Austria, the Netherlands, Belgium, they all have significant overseas holdings. If they repatriate too, the cumulative effect would put enormous pressure on the dollar's credibility. Some analysts suggest the Fed might respond by accepting gold as collateral for covered bonds. It's a stopgap measure, one that makes gold functional on the balance sheet without formally abandoning fiat orthodoxy. But it's also a slippery slope. Once the market sees gold re-entering mainstream monetary operations, it could accelerate the shift away from dollar-centric models. What about the ECB and global coordination? The European Central Bank, meanwhile, may find itself navigating uncharted waters. If major Eurozone members consolidate their reserves at home, it strengthens the euro's position, but also exposes intra-bloc tensions. Will the ECB harmonize gold strategy across member states or allow national initiatives to fragment its policy coherence? And how will the IMF, BIS, and other international institutions respond to a global pivot toward gold-backed or gold-tethered reserves? A political gamble or a strategic masterstroke? Critics will argue that repatriating gold risks provoking U.S. retaliation or spooking markets unnecessarily. But from Berlin and Rome's perspective, the calculus is changing. This is about hedging against U.S. political volatility, insulating against dollar depreciation, and preparing for a multipolar monetary future. In that light, it may be less a gamble than a long overdue correction. Conclusion: the real price of trust. The movement of 1,730 tons of gold is not merely a matter of logistics or accounting. It's a referendum on the trust that has underpinned the global financial system for generations. Germany and Italy are asking, in effect, can we still rely on the same assumptions that governed the post-Bretton Woods era? And if not, how do we prepare for what comes next? As physical gold begins its journey home, the symbolic message is loud and clear. Control over national wealth matters. Trust is not infinite. And in a world of growing uncertainty, sovereignty is being redefined, 1 ton of gold at a time. So ask yourself, if even America's closest allies are quietly removing their wealth from U.S. control, what does that say about the future of global power? The age of unquestioned dollar dominance may not be over, but its golden guarantee is being weighed, measured, and quite possibly moved.